I think it's safe to say that Superman has been one of the oldest and most popular superhero characters since the dawn of the concept of superheroes in the pages of comic books. Of course, that means that there have been innumerable storylines and various different interpretations of Superman over the years, and the Man of Steel has gone from hero to villain to an anti-hero across various story arcs. Today, in this video, I will explore a relatively underrated Superman narrative written by Tom Veitch with artwork by Frank Gomez titled Superman at Earth's End. Now, this might not be the finest Superman tale out there, but it has to be among the most unique because of the premise, where an old Superman is featured in an apocalyptic world that has everything from mutants, monsters, evil clones, and giant unforgettable guns. For me, this has been always more of a guilty pleasure with the deliberate 90s excess and over-the-top insanity throughout the story. So, without wasting any more time, let me dive right in. Superman at Earth's End is regarded more or less the sequel to the miniseries Kamandi at Earth's End, and while I'm not a huge fan of that reimagining of the DC comic series Kamandi, I find this one quite amusing and entertaining. The comic series begins with a message for context, and it says that the year is now 2102, and it's been 130 years since Superman has been on Earth. He's watched the human civilization destroyed twice, and following the second apocalypse, his powers drained alarmingly because of the polluted skies that covered the sun. He was reduced to a point where he forgot his own name, but the Youth Kamandi and the Biomech VIPs that were basically biological machines programmed to find the cause of the second apocalypse brought him to their orbiting city above the clouds. Superman regained his powers under the bright sunlight, and he helped the Biomechs defeat the Machine Mother. However, by now, the system's computer has killed most people on Earth, and the Biomechs ask Superman to join them in cleansing the Earth of all the subhuman scum. Of course, the Man of Steel doesn't think like that, and this is where our story begins. So now you know what I mean when I say that I find the concept of At Earth's End so intriguing. We have an aging Superman who is not exactly at full strength or anywhere close to his prime, but his conscience and sense of morality and ethics have remained the same. Unfortunately, the world as he knows it has changed so much that he barely even recognizes it anymore. The Biomechs have scheduled Gotham City for annihilation under the prime directive given by the Master Scientists, and Superman is dead against the idea. The first look of Superman is enough to make me realize that this is not the Superman we know. He has long white hair and a beard, but he is still jacked up like he was in his younger days. The Biomechs don't really have any emotions, and a Biomech 7 specimen, Ben Boxer, is simply interested in the mission at hand, even though he understands the emotions that Superman is going through because of his past attachments with Gotham City. The plan is to nuke the city, and Ben points out that the city is now infested with freaks and mutants, and it's a hellish place filled with genetic corruption where there is really nothing worth saving. As Ben Boxer reveals, the mission of the Biomechs is to cleanse the Earth for the new generation of mankind, and Superman doesn't agree with such nihilistic ideas. He fights a few Biomechs and promises to find a better way, but I can see that the Biomechs like Ben Boxer actually allow him to leave, and it's clear that he's no match for their powers. When Superman's gone, Ben just says that he'll soon find out that the old ways are gone forever, and the very next panel shows that the Biomech was dead right. Superman flies to Earth with a lot of hope and optimism as he wonders if the planet can be restored back to its former glory. The ruins below are now populated by savages and outlaws, and monsters and mutants roam freely across the wastelands. At last, he comes to Gotham, a city that he deeply respects, even though it has been riddled by crime and darkness in the past. According to Superman, Gotham is a part of a civilization that never gave up, and his old friend Bruce Wayne understood the significance of the city. Superman remembers the great loss that he felt when Bruce died, and just as he is reminiscing past memories, he gets attacked. The attacker is a mutant who looks like Batman, except for the fact that instead of a cape, the mutant has actual bat wings, red eyes, sharp fangs and claws, and bat-like ears. It's an abomination that takes Superman by surprise, and the Man of Steel has already lost some of his regained strength after the brief fight with Ben Boxer. I couldn't help but laugh when Superman asks Bruce, "Is it you?" when it so clearly is the farthest thing from Batman. Nevertheless, after the initial setback, Superman is able to fight back and bring it down. Unfortunately, there are more of those mutant creatures that come up to him, and Superman is pinned down. I almost feel sorry for this old man version of our favorite superhero, because Prime Superman would laser them down or punch them to the next lane within seconds. Then there comes a lucky escape as the bat creatures seem to be scared when they hear the sound of engines, and in comes a biker gang as the creatures flee. But there is no escaping for them because the biker gang described as post-apocalyptic cowboys, is packing some powerful sidearms. They open fire on the creatures and the scene turns particularly violent when the leader of the gang says they should decapitate the mutants. Of course, our ethical old man has a problem with that, even though he was himself about to be ripped apart a few moments earlier, and Superman confronts the leader. Now, let me give you a quick picture of these post-apocalyptic cowboys, because you might be imagining something very different because of their fancy name. These are really a bunch of young boys who are half the size of Superman, and they've adapted to the harsh nature of the land. Superman holds the leader up by his collar, but Boss, as the others call him, is hardly bothered by this show of strength. One of the boys suggests that Superman could be one of the DNA Diktators' creations, and clearly they have no idea whatsoever about who Superman is. The Man of Steel tries to convince them that he's one of the good guys, and even though the others are ready to fire at him, their boss thinks otherwise and wonders if he can be useful. Also, at this point, I already know that whatever this DNA Diktator is, he's the actual villain of the story. The boss offers to show Superman around Gotham City, and guess where he takes him first? Yes, it is straight to Wayne Manor, and Superman is shocked to find out that the tomb of Bruce Wayne has been desecrated and his remains have been stolen. Well, that explains the terrifying clones we saw earlier. The boys tell Superman that the Diktators stole the remains and made monsters out of his body. This is the moment where we learn a bit more about the ways of Gotham City, where the Diktators have built a lot of ugly freaks and mutants that are supposed to help them in taking over the world. The boys are some of the rare survivors because the Diktators took away their parents for experiments. These tough biker gang fellas have a tough backstory, where they barely escaped through a secret way out through the cave network under the city, but their parents didn't have the same luck and still remain trapped there. Finally, Superman has some idea about the situation, and he realizes that the Diktators are basically sinister genetic engineers who are using the parents of these young boys and other genetic traits to create abominations that can fuel their war games. He immediately wants to get into the action and asks about the entrance to the bunker, where such despicable genetic crimes are committed, and the boys take him there. But before the journey, there's a crucial panel that shows the true philosophy of Superman as he watches the gun kept carefully in Wayne Manor. This is the gun that killed Bruce's parents, and it changed his life forever. Superman wonders what he would think of this new world where guns are the only means of survival. I love how the walls of Wayne Manor have pictures of all the notorious villains, like Joker and Penguin, and it's a quick walk down memory lane before we get back to this apocalyptic chapter. The biker gang leads Superman deeper into the cave network, and underneath Wayne Manor, Superman finds all of Batman's surveillance technology that's still functional, powered by 1,000-year atomic batteries. After moving through the tunnels for hours, they finally arrive at the containment wall of the Gotham City bunker. The place has been welded shut since the boys fled, but Superman uses all of his strength to open the sealed door. The alarming sign is that he really struggles to do so, which is a clear sign that his regained strength has started to drain. What they find inside is truly shocking because the parents of the boys are stuck in what looks like a diseased version of hell. There are these giant machines called harvesters, and these machines grind biological material and work their genetic engineering to create the mutated versions. The parents are all stuck there in a deranged state, their humanity completely gone, as they've been left as a husk of their old self. When the boss of the gang tries to communicate with his father, he gets attacked and Superman has to save him by knocking him out. The parents are beyond saving, but the Man of Steel is determined to get to the bottom of this inhuman practice. Suddenly, the harvester machines detect the presence of an intruder, and one of its powerful mechanical arms grabs Superman tightly. He struggles to break free, and by now, the Diktators are ordering the machines directly, which makes matters worse. The harvester machines detect the old man to be the American Superman, and it states that he's needed for the future experiment. When he's cornered and has no way out of this mess, one of the gang members hands him powerful, tank-piercing ammo. You see, his heat vision doesn't work now, so the gun is the best that he can do, and he unleashes some powerful shots that dismantle the harvester machines. But all this fighting has taken a toll on Superman, and he collapses. The boys realize that it is time to retreat for now, and they tie Superman to their bikes and escape from this hell. Once they're safely back in the Batcave, Superman recovers his senses and he tries to devise the next part of the plan. He knows he must get back Bruce's remains from the Diktators, and he also wants to confront them face to face, which means it's time for round 2. The real problem here is that Superman is only at half strength, and the gang has the perfect substitute for that. They hand him a massive gun with numerous barrels called the Expunger, which is a weapon captured by Batman in his final case. He kept it in his Batcave, but his final words were that one day the world will be free of guns or the world will be no more. I mean, Batman might not be a directive part of this narrative, but you cannot help but admire his visionary statement. Superman now wants to strike the Diktators where it'll hurt them the most, the laboratory where they store the bodies and remains in order to produce produce a constant supply of mutant monsters. As it turns out, the Wayne Laboratories is their new space, and it's right above the secured bunker that Superman had penetrated earlier. Superman launches an attack to get in, but he doesn't start off with the expunger, and it soon proves to be a bad idea because demonic security guards in Nazi regalia appear to stop him. The Man of Steel goes hand to hand with these beastly guards, and then comes the biggest shocker of this comic series, the real face of the Diktators. I never could have guessed that the Diktators are actually twin replicas of Adolf Hitler, and they're just as evil. They order the guards to decimate Superman, and the boys realize that the old superhero has bitten off more than he can chew. They join the fight with their guns and make the scales slightly even, but the relief is short as they are surrounded by more of the mutant guards and creatures. Superman is shocked to see two Hitlers, and he understands that these are the DNA Diktators. They reveal that they were created by Wayne Laboratories from a lock of Hitler's hair, and this was done after the creation of Ben Boxer. Now, the master scientists are all dead, but the twin Hitlers have continued to live and dream of world domination. But then comes a surprise because the Diktators have an offer for Superman. They ask him to join them because his DNA would be the key to developing young Supermen, which would help them in achieving their dreams of taking over the world. We all know what Superman would say to such an offer, and he now realizes that he needs the expunger more than anything. The Man of Steel understands that Ben Boxer was right, and he must face reality, keeping his anti-gun ideals aside. The next part is probably my favorite bit in the whole story, as Superman wields the gigantic gun with ammo belts flowing everywhere. It looks absolutely badass when he says, "It is time for Superman to finish World War II." Meanwhile, the Diktators have unleashed a fresh horde of clone monsters, and the expunger roars into action as thousands of powerful bullets rain down on them. They're destroyed and the survivors free as the Diktators are furious with this unexpected fight back. They plan to use their secret weapon to defeat him and retreat to the inner sanctums of their clone factory. But the walls of the factory are no match for the mighty expunger, and they're breached in no time. At the center of the laboratory, we see the entire system as raw meat rises on conveyor belts out of the underground bunkers. This is the raw material for the genetic mill of the Nazis, and Superman can see that the horrors of the Second World War never really ended. The final moments of At Earth's End are rather dramatic, and I love the climactic fight. The Diktators talk about how the master scientists created them because they couldn't resist their curiosity to experiment on this. However, it didn't go as planned because when the scientists realized that they had recreated evil, it was already too late. The Diktators killed them and took over, and since then, they've developed an army of mutants from the genes of humans and superhumans. But the secret weapon that they use on Superman is the real shocker. It's an evil and monstrous clone of Batman, and this one is way more powerful than the bat creatures that we saw earlier. It's said that the reincarnated Batman has the power of 100 Bruce Waynes, and after a really intense duel, Superman finally takes him down. The problem is that he has only the last bit of his strength remaining, and the desperate Diktators use their guns to shoot him. Since he's lost his invulnerability, he actually sustains multiple bullet wounds, but he still uses the expunger one last time to put an end to the DNA Diktators. After it's all over, an injured Superman stumbles upon the casket carrying the remains of his old friend, and he carries Bruce's remains away as flames consume the evil laboratory. The old superhero is bleeding profusely from all the bullet injuries, but he's still determined as ever and wants to cremate the remains of Bruce Wayne so that nobody can repeat what the DNA Diktators did. As he completes the funeral of Bruce, Ben Boxer comes down from the skies with the other biomechs. Superman tells Ben that his internal organs have been damaged beyond repair, and Ben offers to turn him into a biomech just like himself. But the Man of Steel is done with life, and he wants to go out with his humanity intact. He asks Ben to take care of the young boys and be their guardian, and it's almost an emotional climax as he walks into the funeral pyre to join his old friend. Yes, it's the end of Superman, who dies protecting what he adored most about the Earth, its humanity. Ben Boxer doesn't try to stop him, even though he could have if he wanted to, because he respected the last wish of Superman. The whole event has such an impact on the young boys that they throw away their guns into the fire. The story ends with Ben admiring the nature of human courage, which can never be destroyed, even when the last weapon on Earth turns to rust. I started this video by saying that At Earth's End is by no means perfect. The story has plenty of loopholes and loose ends, but trust me when I say that it's hella cool to watch an old Superman wield the biggest gun ever and decimate Nazi forces, along with a couple of evil Hitler clones. I think you cannot disregard the sheer entertainment on offer here, and maybe this comic series should have a place among the most unique Superman stories. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this narrative, and also, if you appreciate our efforts in bringing you this content, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more such videos.